Chapter 1051, Countless Physicians' Arrival 2. Great Master, for what purpose are these medical books placed here? A young man could not help but inquire. Qing Mu turned and looked at him in surprise. Aren't you asking nonsense? The medical books placed here are naturally for everyone's viewing. As long as you are a member of our physician tower, you have the right to peruse these medical books. The young man's heart thumped and joy flashed through his eyes. You mean, as long as we join the physician tower, these books can be casually read? Qing Mu nodded. That's right, anyone who joins can read the medical books. In addition, we've set up a sitting room and anyone who has any illness can come to the hall to be treated. Furthermore, you can select a physician at your will. In this mainland, physicians would not easily treat a patient. Even if they were to pay a huge amount, they might not be able to invite them. However, Qing Mu said that they had the option to choose the physician. However, Qing Mu paused, we do not accept money for treatment in the physician tower. What you can bring for the exchange of medical treatment can only be medicinal ingredients. The higher level of physician you select, the equivalent medicinal ingredient will be more expensive. Every level of this medicinal tower wasn't very spacious, and so the tour of the first level was finished soon after that. When they walked to the staircase, eager to continue looking through the tower, they had been stopped by Qing Mu's voice before they took a step upstairs. Hold it. Everyone turned in succession, failing to understand the reason while looking at Qing Mu's aged face. Great Master, we've finished touring the first level and we wish to tour the second level. Qing Mu shook his head. The second level is not open to the public. What? These people were shocked. Not open to the public? What does it mean? Apologies, we have a regulation in the physician tower. Only those who pass through the first level's evaluation can enter the second level. Qing Mu smiled. Of course, all the medical books on the second level are definitely more precious compared to the first level. In addition, I can guarantee that you've never seen these medical books outside. If you have any doubts, you can peruse the medical books on the first level. I believe the physicians present can determine if they are precious. Qing Mu's eyes inspected his surroundings while containing a confident smile. There was indeed no lack of physicians among them, so after hearing Qing Mu's words they immediately proceeded towards the cupboards filled with medical books. They impatiently took out a book to flip through at high speed. The more they looked, the more apprehensive they were. It was to the extent that some were so excited that their hands trembled incessantly while being unable to hold on to the book in their hands. This is the method for treating acne. I had read through several antiquarian books to treat this illness for a patient but wasn't able to find a solution. To think I would actually see the method of treatment here. Ha ha ha, so it turns out, using a silver needle in this way can increase the effects. This is my first time hearing of this. Furthermore, I didn't know that an ointment made from Tianshan snow lotus and Mulubeckia complera could be used to quickly remove a scar. It's a miracle, this book is a miracle. If the first level already has such miraculous books, then what about the second or third level? Reading the contents of the books, everyone's eyes brightened as they turned towards Qing Mu. At this moment, even their breathing became urgent. Great Master, may I ask, how can we join the physician tower? Are we required to be evaluated? A faint smile curled up on Qing Mu's face. Even if you're not a physician now, you can join the physician tower as long as you are interested in medical skills. However, if you want to enter the second level, you have to undergo an evaluation. Upon passing, you will be given a pass to enter the second level. Chapter 1052, Countless Physicians' Arrival 3. The primary objective of the physician tower establishment was to accept physicians from all around the world, so regardless of their skills they could become a member of the tower. However, they were only allowed to linger around the first level. If they wanted to enter the second level, it was not as simple. Great Master, I'd like to join the physician tower. The youth felt heartened and hastily spoke. Don't be anxious, I have a bit more information to announce. Qing Mu slightly smiled. First, the physician tower won't restrict anyone's freedom and you'll join us nominally while retaining your freedom. In addition, there's no requirement for you to stay in the tower at all times. Second, the medical books on the first level can be freely browsed through, but on the second level, you'll have to use medicinal ingredients in exchange for reading the books. Furthermore, the contents of the books are not allowed to be spread outside, and those found guilty will be punished as a rebel. Everyone expressed their comprehension in regards to Qing Emu's words. After all, the medical books in the physician tower were extremely precious, and if they were to be spread around, it would be a huge loss. Today, I'll only be bringing you around to tour the physician tower, and for interested parties, you can start registering at the tower tomorrow. At the same time, I'll be looking forward to everyone's arrival in the physician tower. Qing Emu's face maintained a smile all along while his voice was neither hot nor cold. After he finished speaking, everyone's heart became excited. Even those who weren't physicians revealed emotional expressions. The reason was, with the existence of the physician tower, perhaps they would not have to be vexed if they fell ill. Everyone, if you wish to stay, you can continue touring around the first level. I still have some matters at hand, so I shall not keep your company. Qing Mu cupped his hands and turned to walk up the second level. The originally rowdy crowd became even noisier after Qing Emu's departure, and sounds of discussion incessantly sounded on the first level. I wonder who could set out so many precious medical books. I heard that the tower master of this physician tower is a young woman. Furthermore, she is as valiant as a tiger and used a foot to flatten the entire mountain peak. A foot? What I heard was that she released a breath facing the heaven-defying bandit gang, and the entire group met their destruction. If young Luo Feng could hear these discussions, she would understand why they were called rumors. Using a foot to flatten the entire mountain peak. Using a breath and blowing the heaven-defying bandit gang into destruction. The words were truly more and more ridiculous, and her image within their hearts was no longer that of a human. Unfortunately, the instigator who caused the sensation had thrown responsibility for the physician tower onto Qing Mu while she and Xiao Mo were leisurely strolling outside. You finally dared to come out since Xiao Bai's not present. Young Luo Feng raised her brow, looked towards the youngster beside her, and spoke while smiling yet not smiling. Xiao Mo pouted. It's because Little Tree wasn't willing to stay inside the God Code world, so I intended to bring him to enjoy the outside. This was the first time Little Tree had left the God Code world, and he was curious about everything. He continuously waved his small hands while his melodious laughter echoed down entire streets. Suddenly young Luo Feng paused, and her eyes fixed on the back of someone not far away. She felt that this back was somehow familiar, as if she had seen it before somewhere. That person also seemed to sense someone looking at him from behind. He slowly turned around while his view floated towards young Luo Feng. In that instant, they were both stunned. Chapter 1053, Countless Physicians' Arrival 4. You. The originally relaxed man was stunned on the spot after spotting young Luo Feng. His shocked gaze stared unwaveringly at the young lady, and a long time later, his astonishment became fury and he furiously shouted. Young Luo Feng. This shout had attracted everyone's attention, and passers-by were raising eyebrows in succession as they were filled with curiosity. No one understood how this gorgeous young lady had offended the young master of the Nangong clan. Young Luo Feng subconsciously rubbed her ears. You don't have to be so loud, I can hear you speaking. The man was furious and walked towards young Luo Feng with anger across his face. He fiercely glared at her and shouted, Young Luo Feng, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have come to this place. Don't you have any words you would like to say to me? Young Luo Feng shot a glance at the lovable woman who was hugged by the man while the smiling intent in her eyes increased. I think you should be grateful to me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the opportunity to possess so many beauties. The man originally believed that this woman would at the very least admit her mistakes if they were to meet again. After all, if he hadn't tried to save her in the past, he wouldn't have transmigrated to this place. However, right now, she was actually acting in the right and self-confident of herself. You're good. The man fiercely gnashed his teeth. Who asked this woman to be his sole friend in Hua Xia? He was truly unable to stay angry with her. Bodyguards from Nangong clan were unaware of what was happening. They hastily went up to protect the man and instantly unsheathed their longswords and faced young Luo Feng. You had better apologize to our young master. Otherwise, the Nangong clan will never forgive you. After speaking, the bodyguard turned towards the man while revealing a flattering smile. That expression was just like a dog desiring its master's praise. Pa! Suddenly, the man's hand raised as it slapped the bodyguard's face, and he suddenly kicked him, causing the guard, who failed to understand anything, to be kicked flying. Young master. The bodyguard covered his own face and looked at the man while feeling wronged. He didn't understand what he did wrong. The man added another few kicks in his rage. What are you doing? This is my friend and you dare to be disrespectful to my friend, so it's equivalent to being rude to me. Men, haul this guy away. The bodyguard was shocked silly. Didn't young master want her to apologize to him earlier on? He had merely acted in accordance with his young master's actions. How did this young lady suddenly become his young master's friend? Let's go. The man walked up and put his arm on young Luo Feng's shoulders as he unrestrainedly flung his sleeves. It's been so many years since we last met and we should have a drink. This place isn't suitable to live in. Little Tree looked at the arm holding young Luo Feng's shoulder and started giggling. He raised his hands and a vine attacked from the back, thrusting into the man's rear. OWW. Suddenly, the man's heart-wrenching scream echoed throughout the street. Who launched a sneak attack? The man turned around in fury while his unruly eyes surveyed his surroundings. His hands ultimately caressed his injured rear as it was so painful that he couldn't even stand straight. Kekeki. Little Tree laughed even happier while dancing and gesticulating for joy. His tender and fair face were filled with a brilliant smile. No one would imagine that it was a child in the early stages of development who launched a sneak attack on the man. Chapter 1054. Countless Physicians' Arrival 5. Little Tree, you've done well. Xiaomo giggled and looked at the fat baby in his embrace. He lowered his voice and spoke. Remember, your father is Yun Xiao and only he can approach your mother. You should poke other men who approach her in their rear. This tragic man never would have imagined his rear had been injured because of an unintentional action of his. Xiaomo, help support him over to the restaurant to take a rest. Young Luo Feng cast her eyes at Xiaomo as if thinking of something. Her pair of pitch-black eyes seemed to have seen through everything. Xiaomo pulled a lovable face, passing Little Tree in his embrace to young Luo Feng before walking over to support the man's staggering figure. Young Luo Feng, are these two your relatives? The man looked at Xiaomo and Little Tree while questioning in curiosity. Xiaomo straightened his chest, speaking boldly and confidently. This child is my little brother called Yun Shu and my name is Yun Mo. We are both Yun Luo Feng's sons. Sons. Similar to lightning striking down, the man opened his mouth wide in shock and only recovered his senses after a long time. Only after some time later did his distracted line of sight turn towards Yun Luo Feng and cursed. Shit, a few years without meeting and you've even had a child. Tell me, who's the fearless man who married you? In his heart, it was neatly laid out that Yun Luo Feng was a devil. That year when they first met in Hua Xia, her appearance caused him to be alarmed, so he had displayed his former temperament by going up to tease her. After which, he had been seriously beaten up, to the extent he was unable to stand for half a month. From then on, young Luo Feng's reputation spread throughout the entire school, and no one had the nerve to provoke her. It was also because of this incident that they had gotten acquainted and they became friends who hung around together. Shenmo, you're quite talkative. Young Luo Feng narrowed her eyes and her hands tightly clenched together so that her joints produced crisp cracking sounds. That sound caused a cold sweat to drip from his handsome face as he embarrassingly laughed. Right now, my name isn't Shenmo. It's Nangong Yunyi. You better not call me the wrong name. Xiaomo, drag him inside. Young Luo Feng cast a meaningful glance towards Xiaomo before entering the restaurant. In understanding, Xiaomo who was dragging the man increased his pace without caring about his wailing sounds. In her previous incarnation, young Luo Feng had picked up the God Code world in the early days, so Xiaomo had also been following aside young Luo Feng for several years. Naturally, he also knew about Nangong Yunyi and young Luo Feng's relationship. Even though he had fallen deeply in love with Hua Xia Medical School's faculty Belle, he had never forgotten how this bastard struck up a conversation with his own lord. The previous him was unable to avenge his lord, so right now, he had to ruthlessly tease him. Inside a cabin of the restaurant, it was luxurious and quiet. Xiaomo dragged Nangong Yunyi inside and forcefully threw him on the floor, causing him to be in so much pain that he wailed. Young Luo Feng, where did your son come from and why does he have such huge strength? I picked him up. Indeed, Xiaomo was picked up by her. The two beauties who Nangong Yunyi hugged in his arms also walked in. After seeing him on the floor, their faces went deathly pale due to shock. They hastily went to support him while questioning with concern, "Young master, are you all right?" "I'm fine, help me up so I can take a seat." Chapter 1055, Countless Physicians' Arrival 6. Nangong Yunyi shook his head and spoke. The two beauties used a loathing expression to check out young Luo Feng, clearly reproaching her for throwing Nangong Yunyi on the floor. However, since he hadn't said anything, it wasn't convenient for them to express their dissatisfaction. A while later, the waiter brought the menu over while young Luo Feng causally ordered a few dishes and passed it back to the waiter. The two beauties seemed to be accustomed to sitting on either side of Nangong Yunyi. The lady on the left wore a green robe and had a red decoration between her brows, seemingly extremely seductive. She looked at young Luo Feng while coquettishly smiling. "Miss Yun, where's your husband? Why is he not together with you? I wonder if your husband found out that you had a meal with another man, what expression would he have?" This lady in green robes had been doted on by Nangong Yunyi as she was very beautiful. As a result, she did not place young Luo Feng in her sights. So what if she was the young master's friend? Could it be that the young master would punish her because of her few words? Nangong Yunyi's expression had already darkened while flames of fury surged forth from his eyes. His sharp eyes shot towards the lady in green garments like a knife. However, she did not notice his gaze and continued. "Miss Yun, I am saying this for your own good as I was afraid you and your husband would have an argument, so I reminded you. After all, if it were up to me, I would never go out with another man after getting married." Her words were clearly spoken for Nangong Yunyi to hear. First, she pointed out young Luo Feng's fickle mind and second, making it known that she was faithful and constant while telling him that young Luo Feng wasn't a good person. How could a woman who was married but continued to seduce other men be good? Hearing her words, Xiao Mo giggled. "Auntie, I'll thank you in place of my mother for your good intentions. My father has always respected my mother and he would never object to anything my mother says. If my mother asks him to head east, he'll never head west. You've slandered my mother as such, and I believe you're jealous of her. After all, my father is a good husband both domestically and socially. In addition, he can beat his rivals while defending his virtue. With an exceptional man like my father, do you think my mother would be seduced by a womanizer?" In Xiao Mo's heart, Yun Xiao was unrivaled and no one could be compared to him in this world. The lady in green was so angered that her whole face turned red, but before she had the chance to speak, she had been interrupted by Xiao Mo. "Answering your previous question as to why my father isn't here, it's because if an exceptional man like him were to appear, what if he was bothered by a shameless woman like you? This wouldn't be good as you're so ugly and old that my father would never fancy you. Perhaps he might even be disgusted by you." The lady in green robes cried due to anger and she turned her head, looking at Nangong Yunyi while feeling wronged. "Young master, this little child bullied me." "Bullied you?" Nangong Yunyi played the teacup in his hands and sneered, "Why do I feel you're being aggressive towards a child? Is this how you were brought up?" The lady in green was stupefied as she never expected that Nangong Yunyi who always indulged her would say such words. Nangong Yunyi sarcastically smiled. His hands tightly held her chin while his voice was cold-hearted and ruthless. Chapter 1056, Countless Physicians' Arrival 7. What this little child said is right. You're ugly, old, and self-opinionated. Do you know why I haven't been visiting you? It's because your looks make me disgusted. If it weren't for your zither skills, I wouldn't have even spared you a glance." Her body trembled while her beautiful eyes filled with tears looked at Nangong Yunyi in shock. She couldn't believe this was something Nangong Yunyi would say. Everyone in Endless City was aware that the young master of the Nangong clan, Nangong Yunyi, liked and respected women, even having the reputation of a flower guardian. He had never spoken a word that would hurt a woman. Yet against her expectations, she heard the most malicious words in this world. "Why aren't you getting lost?" Nangong Yunyi coldly shouted, "I feel that I'm insulting my eyes by taking another glance at you." "Wah!" The lady in green finally couldn't help but cry. She covered her face and ran out of the room as she fiercely slammed the door. Nangong Yunyi took out a handkerchief and wiped the hand he used to hold that woman's chin, before casting his gaze at the other beauty beside him. "Why are you still here? Scram!" That beauty stood up and saluted. Before she left, she subconsciously looked at young Luo Feng, while a trace of curiosity flashed through her eyes. The women in this world are too self-opinionated. Nangong Yunyi sneered as his body lazily leaned against the chair, especially by overestimating their own abilities compared with you. What right do they have? Perhaps due to catching a glimpse of her beauty back then, young Luo Feng occupied an extremely huge portion in Nangong Yunyi's heart. Furthermore, he was aware he wouldn't be able to chase young Luo Feng, so he had given up on the idea. Yet, they had become close friends of a lifetime due to coincidental destiny. Therefore, Nangong Yunyi believed that a man who could make young Luo Feng willing to stay with him would definitely be an exceptional man among men. He even felt that he couldn't compare with him. Young Luo Feng unperturbedly sipped a mouth of tea. Haven't you always been fond of beauties? You're letting them go just like that. How can those women compare to you? Haven't you heard this sentence before? Women are like clothes while brothers are our hand and feet. Although you are a woman, you are the only brother I have in my heart, and I can abandon any woman for you. Nangong Yunyi patted his chest and made a solemn vow. Young Luo Feng narrowed her eyes. Women are like clothing. Her voice carried ample threat, causing Nangong Yunyi to shiver. How could he have forgotten the person before him was also a woman? Nangong Yunyi awkwardly coughed dryly. I was speaking about the two women I chased out earlier on. Furthermore, it's not wrong that I'm fond of beauties, but I've always lived my life cleanly and honestly. Therefore, they didn't suffer any losses. This was true. With young Luo Feng's understanding of Nangong Yunyi, she understood this man was not dandy and loose as he appeared to be. His lecherous personality was only surface deep, but in reality, he was a responsible man. Young Luo Feng placed her teacup and asked while raising her brows, Yunyi, how did you come to this place? After Nangong Yunyi heard her words, he was filled with anger as he glared at young Luo Feng with resentment. Wasn't it because of you? You were the cause of the laboratory explosion. Soon after that, I became the young master of Nangong clan after waking up, and luckily, my face hasn't changed, allowing you to recognize me with a glance. Chapter 1057, Countless Physicians Arrival 8. With the relationship of enduring hardships together in their past lives, they could recognize each other in a glance among a vast sea of people. Oh right, can you explain to me what's going on here? After hearing his words, young Luo Feng subconsciously turned towards Xiao Mo with her brows raised. She understood the matter of Nangong Yunyi transmigrating was certainly related to Xiao Mo. However, the medical god code was of utmost importance to her, and even if she trusted Nangong Yunyi, she would never tell him about this. Thinking of this, young Luo Feng was silent for a long time. I've experienced the same situation as you, and when I woke, I had already arrived here. As for what happened, I'm uncertain. Nangong Yunyi was somewhat dejected. I guess it isn't that easy to leave this godforsaken place. Young Luo Feng faintly smiled. I don't think there are any disadvantages being on this mainland. Since we're here, we should get accustomed. What we should do now is to survive here. In the past, young Luo Feng came to this mainland alone from Hua Xia, and now having met with Nangong Yunyi, she actually felt feelings of meeting a close friend after many years. Haha, Nangong Yunyi heartily laughed. The word that since we're here, we should get accustomed is well said. I shall no longer have groundless fears. We only have to continue living here, and one day we might return to Hua Xia. Speaking of which, I haven't seen you around here in the past. Did you arrive here recently? Young Luo Feng sipped a mouth of tea. That's right, it's my first time arriving in Endless City. Then I will explain the various influences in Endless City. Nangong Yunyi lazily leaned on the chair with his arms crossed while having an unruly smile. There are 3 influential families in this city, and as luck would have it, the Nangong clan I'm in is one of them. If anyone bullies you, you can find me and I'll bring men to avenge you. In any case, I am the young master of the Nangong clan and I still possess such abilities. However, Nangong Yunyi paused for a moment before continuing, remember to detour if you meet people from that physician tower. Young Luo Feng, who was originally tasting the tea, nearly choked after hearing Nangong Yunyi's words. She placed the teacup down and wiped the tea from her mouth while using an odd expression to look at Nangong Yunyi. Why do I have to detour if I meet them? Nangong Yunyi took a glance at her. You arrived here late and aren't aware of the recent happenings here. I heard that the Tower Master is a vicious and merciless female devil. Luckily young Luo Feng wasn't drinking right now, or else she definitely would have spit it in his face. She and Xiao Mo looked at each other and saw a stunned look in each other's eyes. Female devil. Young Luo Feng turned towards Nangong Yunyi and asked. Nangong Yunyi nodded. It's rumored that the female devil is very strong, that can be compared to a giant dragon. She is incomparably strong while looking extremely ugly. She has an odd temperament, and if you were to accidentally offend her, run without delay. Otherwise, you will die in her hands before I'm able to save you. Young Luo Feng blinked her eyes while looking distracted. Incomparably strong, extremely ugly. When were these rumors spread around? Nangong Yunyi clearly didn't notice her puzzled look and continued speaking. In addition, this female devil flattened the mountain peak yesterday where the heaven-defying bandit gang was located, bringing destruction to them with a single breath. Of course, these are all rumors and I'm aware it has been exaggerated. However, being able to eliminate them sufficiently proved her strength. Chapter 1058. Countless Physicians' Arrival 9. Xiao Mo couldn't help but have a coughing spell. His petite face became thoroughly red from restraining his laughter. So it turned out that his master was so terrifying in others' point of view, to even be afraid of her existence. Young Luo Feng's mouth twitched. I wouldn't provoke others for nothing. She originally wanted to tell Nangong Yunyi her objective for coming to Endless City, but she wasn't sure how to approach the topic after hearing these words. As a result, she shut her mouth without saying anything. That's good. Nangong Yunyi relaxed and raised his hands to rub young Luo Feng's head. In the past at Hua Xia, you frequently used force when someone had a different opinion than yours. However, we're not in the same situation right now. In this huge mainland, danger surrounds us and we could easily lose our life. Young Luo Feng had a serious face. Rest assured, I'm no longer a rash person like in the past, and I wouldn't hit someone casually. Then I can rest assured knowing that. Nangong Yunyi's heart relaxed, but after he finished speaking, the door to the room was violently opened with a bang, while a sarcastic voice followed soon after. Nangong Yunyi, so you're here. Right now, I want to use this room, so you shall immediately. Bang. A streak of light caused by a teacup appeared and instantly shot toward the young man standing at the door. Before he managed to react, the teacup smashed into his face and blood instantly flowed from his nose. You talk too much. Young Luo Feng raised her brows and a cold glint flashed through her devilish eyes. Why aren't you getting lost? Nangong Yunyi was stunned. Where was the person who said they wouldn't casually attack others? Where was the person who said they weren't rash? What was this? The other party had hardly spoken a word and she directly attacked without leaving any time for reaction. However, Nangong Yunyi slapped the table. Brilliant. Who cares about exercising forbearance? Facing these type of people, the only way was to beat them until they obey. Wuxi, Nangong Yunyi turned towards the young man who appeared at the door to the room and raised his chin while speaking in an unruly tone. You want me to give this room to you? In your dreams. Hurry and get lost. Don't force me to raise my hands. Wuxi wiped his nosebleed while his expression turned thoroughly red as he furiously spoke. Nangong Yunyi, you're only an illegitimate child of the Nangong family and you dared to attack me. Men, arrest these two people and let the Nangong family retrieve them. The Nangong family and Wu family had always been on bad terms, and chancing upon an opportunity today, he would never let these two off. Bang. Young Luo Feng once again lifted a teacup and forcefully threw it towards Wuxi. This time, Wuxi was sufficiently prepared and turned to one side, thinking of evading this sudden attack. However, the teacup seemed to have grown eyes as it followed his movement and curved, ultimately smashing fiercely on the bridge of his nose, causing him to cry out in pain. I'll count to 3 and you had better disappear from my sight. Otherwise, neither of you will be leaving. Young Luo Feng looked towards Wuxi while speaking expressionlessly. Wuxi evilly glared at young Luo Feng. Not letting us leave? Could it be that you wish to treat us to tea? Hearing his words, young Luo Feng no longer continued speaking nonsense and fished out a dagger from her sleeves, aiming towards Wu Zai's heart. 1. The young lady's voice was languid yet wicked, seemingly a devil from hell, causing one to feel unconsciously frightened. Chapter 1059, Countless Physicians' Arrival 10. 2. The dagger in her hands was aimed at Wu Zai's heart, and once the countdown ended, it would be immediately thrown. Wu Zai's expression changed and he ran out of the room in a flash, disappearing without a trance in only 1 second. After the bodyguard from the Wu family saw their young master leaving, they followed suit, as they were afraid that the dagger in young Luo Feng's hands would be thrown towards them. Seems like an evil person needs to be dealt with evil methods. Nangong Yunyi smiled while shaking his head. Regardless of whether in Hua Xia or on this mainland, offending you equals provoking a devil. Indeed, an evil person required an evil person to counter them. If you are kind, he'll only bully you even more. However, if you are fiercer than the other party, he'll be afraid of you. What did he mean earlier on by saying you're an illegitimate child? Young Luo Feng put away the dagger and asked. Don't tell me you're so miserable to have ended up in an illegitimate child's body. It's no wonder this guy kept thinking about returning to Hua Xia. Nangong Yunyi was filled with helplessness. The head of this Nangong family, who is my father here, was acquainted with my mother first. In addition, they had tasted the forbidden fruit. Originally, my father wanted to take my mother as his wife, but the current wife of my father designed a scheme and tricked my father into getting involved with her after being drunk. Furthermore, she framed my mother as having an affair with another man. My father believed her and left my mother. All these years, my mother had been living outside and passed away not long ago, before I was accepted back to the Nangong family with the title of being an illegitimate child. Young Luo Feng's fingers lightly tapped the table. At the moment when she raised her head, she inadvertently saw the hatred in his eyes. Clearly, after coming to this mainland, Nangong Yunyi already had a deep attachment to his mother, so he naturally hated the instigator. Do you want revenge? Young Luo Feng looked at him and asked. Nangong Yunyi nodded. Yes, I want revenge. That man committed a huge mistake, and even though he is nice to me right now, it can't appease my hatred against him. However, before my mother passed away, it was his name that she constantly repeated. I wish to send him off to accompany my mother, but I know that if I kill this man she won't be happy in the afterlife. Furthermore, Nangong Yunyi paused, that man merely gave an apology for his lack of care towards me all these years and never displayed any guilt concerning my mother. He has also never visited her grave to offer a joss stick. Therefore, it's impossible for me to forgive him. Clearly, even now, the head of the Nangong family still believed that Nangong Yunyi's mother had an affair with another man. Therefore, he was unwilling to associate with her even now. Nangong, I'll help you. Young Luo Feng lightly held his hand. I'll let the woman that framed you and your mother pay the price. Nangong Yunyi was not merely her past life's close friend, but also the only friend who understood her past in this world. As such, she would never let anyone harm him. Forget it, Nangong Yunyi shook his head, the Nangong family's influence is extremely strong. Even now I'm not their opponent and I don't want to implicate you. However, in another few years' time, just a few years, I'll definitely reach the pinnacle in the family and avenge her. Chapter 1060. Countless Physicians' Arrival 11. Young Luo Feng didn't speak. She was already determined not to let off anyone who harmed Nangong Yunyi. The sun was setting in the west. Young Luo Feng and Nangong Yunyi bid farewell at the restaurant's door. The moment she thought of returning, a green robe suddenly appeared before her, and the lady directly facing her was filled with hate out of jealousy. You are a married woman yet you aren't abiding by a woman's virtue and seducing other men. Do you think that by seducing the young master, he'll give you his true heart? That's truly a joke. The young master has a woman he deeply loves and regardless of identity or status, you can never compare with the woman he fancies. The woman Nangong Yunyi deeply loves. Young Luo Feng raised her brows. Seems like this guy met a woman that he fancies. However, why didn't I hear about this from him? Young Luo Feng's eyes were slightly turned and looked towards the green-robed lady in a smiling yet not smiling manner. The woman he has in his heart, what is she like? She wanted to understand Nangong Yunyi's situation and know if she could help him. The green-robed lady coldly snorted. The woman the young master fancies is from one of the three influential families, the Ou family's eldest miss. If it weren't because he is an illegitimate child resulting in a lower status, she would have agreed to marry him long ago. The eldest miss is very outstanding and you can never enter his heart. Young Luo Feng's expression darkened while a trace of cold glint flashed through her narrowed eyes. Low status. The green-robed lady looked distracted, not understanding the meaning behind young Luo Feng's words. Young Luo Feng slowly walked towards her. You wish to ride this huge boat of Nangang Yunyi, yet you feel that his status as an illegitimate child is low. Suddenly, young Luo Feng extended her hands and tightly grabbed her neck. The green-robed lady's face changed and was deathly pale. She raised her head towards young Luo Feng while her eyes were filled with fright. If I hear the words low status from your mouth again, I wouldn't mind letting you lose your head. Now scram. Young Luo Feng raised and flung her hand, ruthlessly sending the green-robed lady flying. The green-robed lady coughed and staggered as she got up from the ground. She no longer dared to offend young Luo Feng and she hastily left. Master, Xiao Mo turned towards young Luo Feng. It seems like Nangang Yunyi's life is a tragedy. In his previous incarnation, he was beaten up by you after confessing. Subsequently, when he became attached to the department's belle, he was involved in your circumstances and came to this mainland before he could confess. Who would have known that after coming to this mainland, his love didn't bear fruit as the woman he liked disdained his status? Hearing Xiao Mo's words, young Luo Feng was silent for a long time before she said, we shouldn't speak too early. If that eldest miss from the OU family likes Yunyi but could only drop it because of her family's objections, then I'll definitely do my utmost to assist him. Xiao Mo pouted in disapproval. Xiao Mo, let's return. I'll get Qing Mu to check up on the OU family's situation. After throwing out these words, young Luo Feng walked towards the physician tower without consulting anyone. Currently, young Luo Feng wasn't aware that the physician tower had become well-known in a day's time such that even surrounding cities were aware of the tower's existence. Because of this, it resulted in countless physicians rushing over at high speed to join the physician tower. It was also because of this that when young Luo Feng returned to the tower, she saw the gates were blocked by streams of people, forming an impenetrable crowd. Just as young Luo Feng wanted to enter, a hand reached out and fiercely pushed her. Why are you cutting in line? Hurry up and go to the end of the line. Chapter 1061, Jumping Q. 1. Not expecting his push, young Luo Feng retreated a few steps back. Looking up, her pitch-black eyes fell on the man who pushed her before. This man was rather handsome and had delicate facial features. He looked at young Luo Feng's gaze and blushed while awkwardly saying, "Don't use such an expression to look at me. Clearly, you were the one at fault as there are many of us in line while only you wanted to jump queue." Immediately, everyone's line of sight filled with blaming intention fell on young Luo Feng. "Miss, this would be your fault. How can you jump the queue out of nowhere? Indeed, we've been queuing up for an entire afternoon to join this physician tower, and why are you jumping the queue?" These unscrupulous voices blaming young Luo Feng caused Xiao Mo to feel stifled, and he fiercely glared at everyone who spoke and chided her. Just as he wanted to speak, a hand suddenly stretched out and restrained him. The young lady was beaming with a big smile while her wicked black eyes stared deeply into the youth. Her slightly languid voice sounded unhurriedly under the setting sun. "Your name?" The young man was startled. "Mu Chu." "Mu Chu." Her smiling expression became thicker. "Mu Chu from the Zhao Qin Mu Chu." Mu Chu's expression once again turned red as hot anger rushed forth from his eyes. Mu from the word, see Mu and not Zhao Qin Mu Chu. During the time when there was a surge of people flocking around, Qing Mu squeezed through from the physician tower. Having spotted young Luo Feng who was surrounded in the middle of people, he was startled for a moment as he hastily went up. "Miss Yun, you've returned." Miss Yun. Regardless of whether it was Mu Chu or others, they had been distracted by Qing Mu's address. They originally assumed young Luo Feng was the same as them who came to register, but contrary to their expectations, it seemed that she already belonged to the physician tower. Young Luo Feng nodded and pointed towards Mu Chu while devilishly spoke, "Great Master Qing Mu, bring this guy into my room." Towards Qing Mu, young Luo Feng still maintained her initial respect for him, and so, she had addressed him as Great Master. It was also this address that caused everyone who was still suspicious of young Luo Feng's identity to dispel their original thoughts. Although they heard the Tower Master was a young woman, it was impossible for it to be her. If she was the Tower Master, she wouldn't have addressed Qing Mu as Great Master. Mu Chu looked at the leaving young Luo Feng, and his hands placed beside his legs were tightly clenched and a trace of struggle flashed through his eyes. Bring him to meet her in her room. This woman had gorgeous looks but was actually a huge pain. However, he did not have a choice. For his objective for coming today, he could only sacrifice himself. Thinking of this, Mu Chu took a deep breath and slowly followed Qing Mu into the physician tower while others revealed an envious expression looking at the leaving Mu Chu. Even though they were unaware of the relationship between Qing Mu and this young lady, she would at the very least have a considerable status here. If they could obtain her good graces, their position in the physician tower would rise subsequently. It seemed like a young man had an easier path and could take a shortcut, but for people like themselves, they could only desperately work hard. Physician Tower. Mu Chu quietly followed behind Qing Mu, but also, he couldn't restrain his curiosity. Great Master Qing Mu, where are you leading me to? Qing Mu turned and glanced at Mu Chu. Miss Yun has already said for you to meet her in her room. Naturally, I'm bringing you there. Chapter 1062, Jumping Q. 2. However, Mu Chu looked at the spiral staircase. This is already the 8th level. From what I know, it's the Tower Master's territory if we continue going up. Every level in the Physician Tower represented a status, and for example, the 8th level was the Elder's place of residence while above that was evidently the Tower Master's residence. Mu Chu couldn't help but be filled with suspicions. Could it be that the woman had some relation to the Tower Master? Qing Mu laughed grimly. There's no need for questions, just follow me. After speaking, he continued walking up the stairs. Seeing this, Mu Chu did not speak any further as he hastily followed him. The 9th level. After reaching the entrance of the room, Qing Mu halted his footsteps and turned towards Mu Chu. Miss Yun is waiting inside. Go inside and meet her. Mu Chu's expression stiffened and he tightly clenched his fist. He was so nervous that sweat flowed down as his breathing became erratic. Seemingly making up his mind, his hand slowly fell on the door and lightly pushed it open. With his expectations, young Luo Feng should be half inclined on the bed with a veil faintly covering her body while showing a seducing technique, and he was prepared to sacrifice himself. However, witnessing the scene after entering the room, he was unconsciously stunned as he stood foolishly by the door. In the room, there was an unruly atmosphere. The young lady's body lazily leaned on an expensive chair while her natural bewitching aura involuntarily radiated. Her white robes were purer than snow, insolent, and domineering. Her hands overlapped and were placed on her thigh while her seemingly smiling yet not smiling eyes gazed at Mu Chu standing foolishly at the door. Mu Chu tightly clenched his teeth, forcefully restrained his emotions, and walked in. Bang! Qing Mu suddenly closed the door and caused Mu Chu to be shocked with a cold sweat. His expression became increasingly awkward, and his fingers restlessly kneaded his clothes. I know your motive for asking me here. Young Luo Feng quirked her eyebrows. Oh, then why don't you tell me about my motive for bringing you here? Mu Chu's expression was unsightly. If my guess isn't wrong, you have a high position in this physician tower and even have a good relationship with the Tower Master. As long as you allow me to join, I'm willing to do anything you ask me to. Young Luo Feng's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, she laughed and her laughter was matchlessly gorgeous. While Mu Chu was in shock, young Luo Feng's left hand slightly raised. Whoosh! Countless vines appeared in this room and firmly tied Mu Chu's body in a flash. Mu Chu's expression became increasingly pale. He was already prepared to devote himself, but he didn't expect to meet a pervert. Young Luo Feng slowly walked toward Mu Chu and stopped only after arriving in front of him. Her completely wicked eyes checked out the counterpart and lightly laughed. Your figure is too shriveled and you don't even have any abdominal muscles. You are severely malnourished and your appearance is too ordinary. I couldn't even locate you if you were in a crowd. What made you think I was interested in your body? Mu Chu's face once again stiffened. His appearance couldn't be considered as the number one in the continent, but he was still extremely handsome and delicate. Nevertheless, he became ordinary by her words. Indeed, for young Luo Feng, who was accustomed to looking at Yun Xiao's face, any man was too ordinary in her eyes. Furthermore, young Luo Feng swept her eyes over Mu Chu. Just by looking at your figure, I can tell that you definitely have a problem with your ability in the bedroom. I would not come looking for a man like you. Chapter 1063, Jumping Q. 3. Cold sweat trickled down Mu Chu's forehead. He attempted to free his arms, but the vine bounded him extremely tight and he was incapable of struggling free. What exactly do you want? Young Luo Feng lightly kneaded her chin and asked while beaming with a smile. Tell me, who sent you here? Mu Chu was startled and a trace of dismay flashed across his eyes. What are you saying? I don't know anything. Previously, people from the Wu family came to the physician tower and I saw the attendants around the head of the Wu family. However, not long ago, I saw you and one of the attendants together on the streets. Mu Chu lifted his head in amazement, and his expression stared unwaveringly at young Luo Feng. His uncle had indeed brought people to the physician tower and she actually remembered an attendant alongside his uncle, thus determining his identity. This woman was truly frightful. That's right, Mu Chu bitterly smiled, I was sent here by the Wu family and the head is my uncle. Many years ago, my family suffered from our enemy's attack and only me and my sister escaped. In order to survive, we came to the Wu family to seek shelter with my uncle. Against my expectations, my uncle treated us like his own children when my parents were alive, but after they passed away, I had to serve as a bodyguard in the Wu family to guarantee my sister's livelihood. This time, my uncle heard that the physician tower caused a huge sensation, so he pressured me to sneak in here and seize an opportunity to steal the prescriptions inside. Originally I did not agree with this behavior, but ridiculously, he imprisoned my sister to force me here. As a result, I had no other choice but to come here. Mu Chu's expression was of suffering. For his sister who was dependent on him, he wouldn't hesitate even if he had to commit suicide. Furthermore, my sister contracted a serious illness and has to consume medicine every day. For every single day I delay in obtaining the prescription, he will delay my sister's treatment. I am truly at the end of my rope. Young Luo Feng's black eyes quietly fell on Mu Chu. Do you think I will sympathize with you? Mu Chu was startled and his expression was of helplessness. He thought that by telling his story this woman would sympathize with him. Yet, he didn't expect she would be so unfeeling. Seems like it would be hard to escape death this time. If he died, his sister would also die. Mu Chu, the matters of you and your sister are unrelated to me and I will neither sympathize nor help. I would never care about unrelated people and at the same time, I don't require feelings like sympathy. In this world, she only cared about the people who were close to her. Her heart was very small to the extent that she could only accommodate those around her and was unable to hold the world. Mu Chu's expression was anxious. Miss Yun, I know you have the ability. I beg you to save my sister. As long as you save her, I will work torturously for you for the rest of my life. Young Luo Feng smiled. With your strength, do you think you have the right to work for me? If she hadn't discovered his intentions in a timely manner, who knows what kind of a mess would have resulted. Thus, she would never easily let him off. Miss Yun, my strength is weakened indeed, I do not have the right to work for you. However, I'm willing to use my life to hold back all dangers for you. I only beg for you to save my sister. A clear line of tears flowed from Mu Chu's eyes. His expression was like an abandoned wolf cub. As he was still young, he did not have any attacking power, but once he grew up, he would surely become a ferocious beast. Chapter 1064, Jumping Q. 4. It was precisely this expression that caused young Luo Feng to be interested in him. If this beast were to be nurtured well, perhaps he would become her strength. If I were to order you to kill people from the Wu family, are you willing? Young Luo Feng quirked her brow and looked at Mu Chu as she questioned. Mu Chu was startled. Clearly, he had not anticipated young Luo Feng would raise such a request. Therefore, he had turned taciturn. He only replied after a long time later. All these years, the Wu family has always treated us siblings as their servants and there was no lack of beatings or hardships that I received. However, without the Wu family, I would have starved to death back then on the streets and my sister would have died of her serious illness. Even though the Wu family was inhumane, they provided us siblings a path to survive. Thus, I can only promise that I will stand on your side if the Wu family were to oppose you. On the other hand, I will not kill people from the Wu family. Even though he was eager to save his sister, he was unwilling to kick a benefactor in the teeth. He understood it was even more impossible for young Luo Feng to be willing to help him after saying these words. Thinking of this, Mu Chu closed his eyes and revealed a hint of suffering. My sister, your brother is useless and is unable to save you. I'm sorry. Suddenly, the vines that bound him retracted so he fell from midair and fiercely tumbled on the floor. Mu Chu opened his eyes in astonishment as he looked at the white-robed lady standing before him and revealed a puzzled look. Miss Yun, you. A trace of chilly aura flashed through Yun Luo Feng's languid smile. Since the Wu family sent you to steal medical books, they have indirectly proven their intention to oppose the Physician Tower. At that time, I hope you'll fulfill your promise and raise your hands against the Wu family. Mu Chu helplessly sighed. According to the Wu family's disposition, they would definitely desire to obtain the Physician Tower. At that time, it was certain that he would have a falling out with the Wu family. In addition, Yun Luo Feng paused for a moment and continued, if you wish for my assistance, you have to prove your strength. There's a dragon cave outside of Endless City with a gigantic dragon guarding it. If you are able to obtain a piece of dragon scale from its body, I will help you. All in all, I will not take in a worthless subordinate. Mu Chu's expression was of resolution. I will absolutely obtain the dragon scale. This was his only hope to save her sister. Consume this medicinal pill. Yun Luo Feng fished out a pill from her lapels and handed over to Mu Chu, and he directly consumed it without a second thought. I don't trust you, and so I've used this medicinal pill to control you. Yun Luo Feng's line of sight once again turned to Mu Chu. Describe to me your sister's condition. Mu Chu hesitated. Why are you asking? I need to know the patient's condition to prescribe the right medicine for her. During your absence, I will take care of her in secret. However, there's a time frame for your mission and you have to return in half a month's time. The young lady's words caused Mu Chu's eyes to brighten. Miss Yun, many thanks for taking care of my sister. By the way, I am still unaware of your relationship with this Physician Tower. What he wanted to ask was, what relationship did Yun Luo Feng have with the Tower Master? Kekeki. Suddenly, a lovable voice could be heard. The petite Huo had unknowingly appeared, and she sat on one of the ceiling beams in the room. She was swinging her legs and her small jade-like face had a big smile. Idiot, since my master is here, obviously she's the Tower Master. Chapter 1065, Jumping Q. 5. Mu Chu's body trembled as if being electrocuted by lightning. This young lady was the Tower Master. He actually told the Tower Master of the Physician Tower not to jump the queue. Recalling his previous actions, Mu Chen felt so embarrassed that he wished he could find a hole and hide inside. Yun Luo Feng looked at Mu Chu from the side. You only have half a month's time, so why haven't you left yet? Hearing this, Mu Chu no longer hesitated and he hastily pushed open the door and rushed downstairs. He had to seize every minute and second, for fear that if he was an hour or two late, Yun Luo Feng would go back on her words. After all, the Physician Tower was his last hope and he couldn't abandon it. Miss Yun. After Mu Chu left, Qing Mu walked in and chuckled. Oh wait, I can't address you as Miss Yun in the future, but Tower Master instead. Yun Luo Feng waved her hands. It's sufficient to address me as before when we're outside. In addition, help me check up on a person. Who? The eldest miss of the OU family. Qing Mu was very fast, and soon after that, he had transmitted the news of the OU family's eldest young miss. Yun Luo Feng had already left the Physician Tower at this moment and returned to the house Qing Mu purchased in the West District. The eldest miss of the OU family is known as the #1 genius in Endless City. Her looks are not comparable to Nangong Lan of the Nangong family, and she can only be considered as delicate and pretty at the very most. However, countless men dream of being her lover. Her elegance and grandeur have also attracted several men, and it's rumored that there is no lack of men fighting over her. Yun Luo Feng slightly furrowed her brows. What I wanted to know aren't these things, but instead, about her personality. This, Qing Mu hesitated for quite a while. For the time being, I do not know about her temperament. Ultimately, the information I obtained right now is merely what she has displayed to the public. Tower Master, why are you asking about Ouya? Yun Luo Feng smiled. Nothing much. I have a friend who has taken a liking to Ouya and I merely want to understand the situation. That's right, have you heard about the situation between Ouya and Nangong Uni? Qing Mu gazed curiously at Yun Luo Feng but still answered her question. Nangong Yunyi being fond of Ouyuya is something that everyone in Endless City is aware of. As for Ouyuya, she has neither declared her stand nor rejected him. I am also unaware of the situation between them. Hasn't made a declaration on her stand. Since it was so, it also meant rejection in a disguised form. It seems like even arriving on this mainland, Nangong Yunyi still had to suffer from emotional hurt. Just as Luo Feng wanted to continue inquiring, a familiar voice suddenly sounded from outside. Luo Feng, it isn't easy to locate you. Aren't you coming out to welcome me now that I've arrived? Luo Feng frowned. Speak of Cao Cao and he will appear. Qing Mu, I'm going to meet with an old friend. Cao Cao. Qing Mu rubbed his head. What kind of person was Cao Cao? An old friend of the Tower Master. Inside the courtyard, Luo Feng spotted the man walking over with haste, and the smiling intent in her eyes gradually spread out as she welcomed him. Nangong, how did you find this place? Nangong Yunyi chucked and dashingly flung his hair. Who am I? I calculated your current location by using my fingers too. Is that so? Did you calculate that you would fall down today? Luo Feng narrowed her eyes and wickedly smirked. Are you joking? How could I possibly fall? Chapter 1066. Jumping Q. 6. Just as he wanted to pose a slightly more dashing posture after speaking, a leg suddenly raised and caught him off guard, causing him to trip and crash on the ground. Luo Feng nonchalantly retracted her leg and shrugged. Seems like your finger calculation isn't too accurate. Nangong Yunyi got up with his face covered in dirt as he looked at Luo Feng with resentment. Luo Feng, you're honestly ruthless. I asked around for so long before I managed to locate this place, and yet you're treating me like this. Get straight to the point, why are you here? Luo Feng questioned. Nangong Yunyi felt increasingly aggrieved. It's my birthday 3 days later and I specially came to inform you. Yet, you've given me such a huge welcome gift. Birthday. Luo Feng lifted her brows and smiled. What present do you want? I'll search and gift it to you. Nangong Yunyi blinked. I want a spirit beast. Can you give me that? Spirit beast. Luo Feng was taciturn for a moment before she nodded. Give me a few days and I'll look for one. Ha ha. Nangong Yunyi heartily laughed and his arm placed on Luo Feng's shoulders. You're a good brother and generous enough. Then I shall wait for this huge birthday present of yours. Nangong Yunyi didn't doubt Luo Feng, as she had always been true to her words. As long as she says she'll do something, it will definitely be done. Of course, provided it was towards people on her side. As for facing her enemies, when had she ever keep her promise? Enemies were meant to be tricked. I'll say this beforehand, I don't want a weak spirit beast. The spirit beast I want has to be at the very least sky-level cultivation. Nangong Yunyi spoke bluntly. Based on his relationship with Luo Feng, there was no need to be courteous. 3 days. 3 days later, I will bring your birthday present to the Nangong family. The spirit beast she intended to gift Nangong Yunyi had to be outstanding, so how could a spirit beast of sky-level strength be sufficient? Nangong Yunyi slapped Luo Feng's shoulders. Then I'll be waiting for you in the Nangong family. You have to be there. 3 days passed by in an instant. Within these 3 days, there was still a long queue outside the physician tower, and the enthusiasm was no less than before. There were even more physicians from faraway places coming over, resulting in the West District becoming incomparable lively. However, in these 3 days, Luo Feng seemed to have disappeared and had not revealed herself in the West District. Other than a small number of people, no one knew about her whereabouts. Under the lively atmosphere in the West District, another piece of news was spread around, causing the originally noisy district to explode. The Nangong family was actually helping an illegitimate child to hold a birthday celebration. This was simply throwing their ancestors' face. Even if this illegitimate child had acknowledged his roots and ancestors, he would be at the very most a bastard, and holding a birthday celebration for a bastard child had never happened since ancient times. It was also because of this that the Nangong family head doting on this illegitimate could be seen. All in all, ever since Nangong Lan was born, there was no emergence of a son in the Nangong family. There had been countless concubines in the harem, but no one had gotten pregnant. In addition, Nangong Lan was merely a daughter, so this illegitimate child had received the family head's doting. At this moment, the Nangong family was brightly lit and both male and female servants were busily walking in and out, seemingly incomparable noisy. Countless carriages halted outside of Nangong family and people walked in with beaming smiles. No matter how they disdained Nangong Yunyi, this bastard child, they had to give a face to the family head. Chapter 1067, Banquet 1. Nangong Family. In the courtyard, Nangong Yunyi's gaze was looking outside, as if waiting for someone's arrival. Looking at his son's action, a light flickered in Nangong Qing's eyes and he walked to his side slowly while gently asking, "Year, are you waiting for someone?" Nangong Yunyi nodded, but he did not look at his father. His vision was directed at the crowd in the courtyard, searching for that familiar voice. Suddenly, a gorgeous face was projected in his eyes, and his eyes brightened up while going out to welcome her in hurried steps. Everyone saw Nangong Yunyi walking over with haste to the door as they hastily stepped aside and made a path. From beginning to end, Nangong Yunyi's gaze did not linger on others as he walked to Yun Luo Feng's side without consulting everyone and naturally placed his arm on her shoulders. "Damn it, Yun Luo Feng, you're finally here. I thought you were going to stand me up." Yun Luo Feng lifted her eyebrows and faintly smiled. "I will accomplish anything I promised you I would do." "Haha," Nangong Yunyi heartily laughed and smirked. "Let's go, I'll bring you in." Everyone made a pathway once again, allowing Yun Luo Feng and Nangong Yunyi to pass through the crowd. However, after witnessing Nangong Yunyi giving Yun Luo Feng special treatment, they couldn't help but try to guess at her identity. "Miss." In back of the crowd, a luxurious carriage halted, and a servant maid reached out her hands. Soon after, jade-like fair hands extended out and got down with the servant maid's help. The servant maid swept a glance at Nangong Yunyi's departing back and her expression was extremely angry. "Didn't the young master of the Nangong family frequently pester you in the past? Why did he especially wait for that woman instead of our miss during his birthday today?" Nangong Yunyi was only a commoner's son and had a low status, so her family's miss would never accept him. It was just that. It was her miss's matter if she didn't accept him, but how could he neglect her miss for another? Oh Yuya elegantly furrowed her brows and her eyes of indifference swept towards the servant maid. "Don't speak recklessly in the Nangong family. To my understanding, the head loves Nangong Yunyi dearly, and if you were to offend them with your speech, it'll definitely wreck the relations between the OU family and the Nangong family." "Yes, miss," the servant maid's mouth twitched but was still somewhat indignant. "Miss, I've long heard that the eldest young master of Nangong family is wanton and unrestrained, having a dissolute temperament. He has also embraced countless women, and from what I see, that white-robed lady should merely be a woman that's interested in social climbing. I wonder what standards does he have, to ignore you, the eldest young miss, for a woman like her?" Oh Yuya gazed at the bustling Nangong family without batting an eye. "So what if he ignores me? It's destined to be impossible between us." "That's right," the servant maid lifted her chin. "Eldest young miss is respectable, and how can a commoner's son be matched with you? Even if he is loved dearly by the Nangong family's head, he's only a bastard. Those elders from the Nangong family would never allow him to succeed the position. The person her miss married was certain to be a giant among men, and Nangong Yunyi didn't deserve her. Let's go." Oh Yuya paused before continuing. "In any case, it's father who asked me to attend this birthday banquet, so no matter how much I dislike Nangong Yunyi, I have to stay here." Chapter 1068, Banquet 2. After saying that, Oh Yuya gracefully entered the Nangong family's banquet hall. Yun Luo Feng bumped into a cyan-robed girl as soon as she entered the hall. When the girl saw Yun Luo Feng, she was taken aback and could not help but blurt out, "It's you." Hearing this, Yun Luo Feng looked up, and she saw an unworldly exquisite face. The beauty in front of her had a calm mannerism that did not reveal any other expression besides the initial shock upon seeing Yun Luo Feng. She even smiled at her. "I didn't imagine we would meet again." Nangong Yunyi extended his arm and stepped in front of Yun Luo Feng, alertly watching Nangong Lan. Nangong Lan snickered. "Eldest brother, look at how worried you are. It's not like I would eat her. Speaking of which, you don't lack women by your side, but I have never seen you worried about any of them. Is this girl more important than Oyuya in your heart?" The fact that Nangong Yunyi had great affection for Ouyuya was no secret inside Endless City. It was no wonder that Nangong Lan would say something like that. Unexpectedly, Nangong Yunyi scoffed at her inquiry. Ouyuya can't compare to her. It was true that he liked Ouyuya, but if she wanted to be enemies with Yun Luofeng, then he would certainly side with Yun Luofeng regardless of anything. Nangong Lan smiled, her eyes peering at Ouyuya, who was entering the banquet hall, and a satisfied smile appeared on her lips. Ouyuya evidently heard Nangong Yunyi's words, but her expression was very placid without any ripples. On the other hand, the little maidservant behind her grew angry, and her eyes viciously glared at Yun Luofeng and Nangong Yunyi, calling them a bastard couple in her mind. That idiot Nangong Yunyi actually said my miss could not compare with that woman. How could a social climbing flower vase who only had looks compare with my miss? Nangong Yunyi caught sight of Ouyuya, who appeared behind him. His expression abruptly changed when he realized he had fallen into Nangong Lan's trap. Ouyuya did not accept him, to begin with, so he should not bother thinking about making her accept him. However, he did not regret it because these words were the truth in his mind. Yun Luofeng clapped Nangong Yunyi's shoulder and looked up at Ouyuya. When she saw Ouyuya, her pupils abruptly contracted. She finally knew why Nangong Yunyi had deep affections for Ouyuya. Her looks were extremely similar to his girlfriend from Hua Xia, the department beauty of Hua Xia University. You know now, Nangong Yunyi wryly chuckled. The first time I saw Ouyuya on this continent, I could not resist the urge to be closer to her. Because the two of them looked truly too similar, I could not help myself. Yun Luofeng cast down her eyes and tenderly consoled, "Don't worry, I will figure out a way to let you go back. However, you must realize something, the two of them aren't the same person." Nangong Yunyi nodded, a smile appearing on his handsome face. "I understand." He had become infatuated, but no one could pull him back. Yun Luofeng's appearance was like a rope, pulling him back to shore. It was at this time that Nangong Qing, who was receiving guests outside, heard the commotion and hurriedly entered. "Year, what happened?" Nangong Yunyi looked up and glanced at Nangong Qing with an unruly smile. "Nothing, I was merely settling my friend. Yun Luofeng, you will sit in the first row later." Chapter 1069, Banquet 3. Eldest brother. Nangong Lan's expression shifted minutely. Only the members of the Wu family and the Ou family have the qualifications to sit in the two seats in the first row. Nangong Yunyi looked back at her. "Isn't the Wu family absent? The empty seat is perfect for my friend then." Nangong Lan's displeasure was clear on her face. Her seat in this banquet had already fallen to the fifth row. If Yun Luofeng was allowed to sit in the first row, wouldn't it mean Yun Luofeng outshone her? "Father." She hurriedly turned to Nangong Qing and opened her mouth, about to say more. Nangong Yunyi hummed and held the back of his head in a cavalier manner with a stalk of straw held between his lips. "This is my birthday, so I am in charge of the arrangements. If you don't agree, then there's no need to continue holding this birthday banquet. The banquet is over." After saying this, he spat away the straw in his mouth and turned to Yun Luofeng. "I don't want to stay at the Nangong family anymore. I can't even make the arrangements for my friend when she visits. Why should I keep staying here? Yun Luofeng, didn't we say we wanted to travel everywhere? Why don't we use this opportunity to go and explore the world?" Everyone knew that besides indulging in women, Nangong Yunyi of the Nangong family was also a prodigal from head to toe. However, the head of the Nangong family doted on him and pandered to his unreasonable actions. As expected, Nangong Qing frowned as soon as he heard this and glanced at Nangong Lan in reproach before turning his gaze to Nangong Yunyi. He stated warmly, "This is your birthday banquet, so it should be you making the decisions. You can arrange for her to sit wherever you want her to." Hearing this, Nangong Yunyi smiled and winked at Yun Luofeng, as though flaunting his greatness. "Let's go." He pulled on her shoulder and dragged her toward the first row. Nangong Qing watched their departing figure with a contemplative look. "Miss." The maidservant of the Ou family stomped her feet, indignant. Nangong Yunyi went too far. He actually allowed that woman to sit with you. Just who is she? How could she have the right to sit in the same row as Miss? A despicable social climber like that woman truly sullies your nobility. How could a woman who was friends with Nangong Yunyi be anything decent? Friends. How could there be a pure friendship between men and women? They were clearly covering up for their immoral behavior. Yuya did not say anything as her cool gaze landed on young Luo Feng, a cold glint flashing through her eyes. Any woman would find it hard to accept when she witnessed a man who once pestered her non-stop shift his gaze onto another woman. Even if she did not like that man. Master. Xiao Mo's unhappy voice was heard from Yun Luofeng's spirit the moment that Yun Luofeng and Nangong Yunyi reached their spot. Nangong Yunyi's standards are truly questionable. How could he like such a pretentious woman? There aren't any differences between that woman and Nangong Lan of the Nangong family. No matter how low the voice of the OU family's maidservant was, it could not escape Xiao Mo's hearing. Hence, when he heard those people insult Yun Luofeng, his lungs nearly exploded from anger. Little Tree already had his vines extend into the ground and was prepared to use them to kill people. Thankfully, Xiao Mo stopped him in time. Otherwise, the people from the OU family would die here. No matter how much he did not like the people from the OU family, he was unwilling to let Nangong Yunyi's birthday feast turn into a blood feast. Chapter 1070, Banquet 4. Yun Luofeng sipped on some tea. It's Nangong Yunyi's own business whoever he likes. As his friend, I can assess them, but I can't make a decision for him. No matter how much of a jerk the woman he likes is, it has nothing to do with me. As a friend, she absolutely could not interfere in the other person's romantic life. It applied in her past life, and the same applied in this life. Nangong, young Luofeng looked at the man beside him with a raise of her brows. I feel like this father of yours treats you quite well. Nangong Yunyi snorted, he treats me well because I'm his only son. This guy favors males over females. So he's unwilling to pass his position to Nangong Lan regardless of how strong she is. He paused briefly and continued, also, he wanted to have me inherit his position the first day that I came back. However, I was uninterested in his Nangong family, so I intentionally behaved as prodigal and lecherous. As expected, he temporarily didn't mention the matter of succession upon seeing how useless I was. This isn't a long-term plan though. As soon as I inherit the Nangong family, Nangong Lan and her cohort won't let me off. If he did not purposefully behave like a useless person, Nangong Lan and her mother would not have kept him until now. Perhaps he would have already lost his life. There were times when being a prodigal was also a layer of protection. Thankfully, you are here now. Nangong Yunyi's gaze turned to Yun Luofeng. You've always been stronger than me. I also believe that I will survive as long as you are here. You believe in me that much? Who else would I trust other than you? Yun Luofeng, you are the only one I can trust in this world. Yun Luofeng grew silent. She had encountered many enemies during these years, and she currently had a stronger Tianwei Empire waiting for her. If she allowed Nangong Yunyi stay beside her, she would certainly drag him down. Update by. It looked like she had to resolve Nangong Yunyi's problems and leave here as soon as possible. Yuya slowly walked to her seat and gracefully sat down. It was like she was disregarding Yun Luofeng and Nangong Yunyi's existence by not looking at them at all. A maidservant by her side snorted with contempt on her face. Miss, there will always be social climbers in this world, using their beauty to entice people. Yet, it is women like Miss relying on their own abilities who deserve people's respect. Relying on her own ability. The corner of Yun Luofeng's lips turned up. Doesn't she rely on her father? The maidservant's face became angry, and she deeply inhaled, suppressing the fury in her heart before turning her gaze to Nangong Yunyi. Young Master Nangong, don't you see that this woman is bullying my miss? Nangong Yunyi's forehead knitted, and he turned his head, continuing to joke with Yun Luofeng. The maidservant's face turned more livid. There was no way that she could believe the man who liked to follow Miss around would fall in love with someone else so quickly. Xiao Meng. Yuya aloofly glanced at her maidservant and expressionlessly said, this is the Nangong family, and that girl is also young Master Nangong's guest, don't be too impudent. Yes, miss, the maidservant unwillingly answered, lowering her head. Father. In the clamorous crowd, Nangong Lan's crisp voice was heard. For eldest brother's birthday, I especially prepared a valuable present for him. I hope eldest brother will like it. She lifted her hand and gently clapped. Immediately, 4 guards carrying a cage strenuously walked in from outside the courtyard. Chapter 1071, Banquet 5. In an instant, everyone's line of sight gathered onto the cage, including Nangong Qing's. What is this? It actually requires a cage to hold it. It looks like the cage keeps shaking, so it should be something alive. Alive? Could it be a spirit beast? Everyone was incredibly astonished. Spirit beasts were difficult to acquire. To be able to tame a spirit beast, a person needed to not only spend energy but also have enough strength. Nangong Lan actually gave a spirit beast as a birthday present. It looks like Nangong Lan treats her brother extremely well. Following Nangong Lan's order, the guards put down the cage and pulled the red cloth from the top of the cage. A gigantic red lion appeared in everyone's view. The lion was completely blood red and incredibly powerful. However, the innately violent lion was actually docilely lying in the cage, akin to an obedient kitten. My goodness, that is the king of the forest, the blood lion. The blood lion is very valuable. Young Master Nangong has received a treasure this time. Nangong Lan wore a faint smile. It took me several months before I could tame this blood lion so that I could give him to eldest brother, and eldest brother's safety will be protected. Nangong Qing glanced at his daughter with complicated emotions flashing through his eyes. Arguably, Nangong Lan was strong and incomparably outstanding, and handing the Nangong family to her would be an exceptional choice. Unfortunately, Nangong Lan was a daughter. How could a woman handle this heavy responsibility? Women can only be accessories and could not step above a man. Father. Nangong Lan's smile deepened. Some time ago, eldest brother's friend and I had a chance meeting, and we fought over a spirit beast. I imagine she must have known that eldest brother liked spirit beasts, so she stole the spirit beast in order to ingratiate herself with eldest brother. Nangong Lan turned to Yun Luo Feng. Miss Yun, did you bring that spirit beast? Nangong Yunyi frowned and was about to fly into a rage when a hand extended from the side and tightly pressed on his arm. The girl lazily leaned against the back of the chair with a wicked smile on her lips. It looks like the eldest miss of the Nangong family doesn't have a great memory and has forgotten the events from just a few days ago. You should find a physician to treat you as soon as possible. Nangong Lan's expression remained unchanged with a faint smile. Miss Yun, what do you mean? First, when we fought over the spirit beast that day, I already mentioned that the spirit beast was a gift for my disciple. Second, I didn't steal the spirit beast, it chose me. Her words did not anger Nangong Lan though, and her face retained its smile. Apologies, I didn't hear those words of yours and thought you wanted to fight over the spirit beast to give it to my brother. However, you can't be held responsible for not considering my brother as important as your disciple in your heart. Young Luo Feng's wicked eyes glanced at Nangong Lan before she turned to Nangong Yunyi and dug out a ring from the folds of her clothes, handing it to him. This is my present for you. Do you like it? Space ring. Haha. Seeing the present that Yun Luo Feng pulled out, some of the people present could not resist laughing out loud. Haha, I'm going to die from laughing. She actually pulled out a space ring to give it to young Master Nangong. That's right, with her status, the most valuable object she can pull out would be a space ring. Chapter 1072, Banquet 6. That's right, in the eyes of the ordinary folks, the space ring is a rare treasure. However, to the Nangong family, they don't lack space rings. She must have been unable to bring out anything decent, so she is using the space ring as a present. The corner Nangong Lan's lips also raised, mockery apparent on her face. A space ring? Someone who would take out a present like this mustn't be anyone of noble status. Father will be able to clearly see the type of people that Nangong Yunyi befriends. However, Nangong Qing did not get angry as Nangong Lan imagined and eagerly stared at the ring that Yun Luo Feng gave to Nangong Yunyi. This ring is the legendary ring that can hold spirit beasts. It was a long while before Nangong Qing's quivering voice was heard. Instantly, the people previously ridiculing Yun Luo Feng were startled. The legendary ring that can hold spirit beasts. This ring is the spirit beast ring. Did this girl guess that Miss Nangong's present was a spirit beast, so she followed her lead and used this ring as a present? The spirit beast ring is valuable indeed, but Miss Nangong's present is more practical, so she has lost to Miss Nangong this time. As though she did not hear those mocking voices, Yun Luo Feng shrugged. I discovered this ring while I was searching for your present, so I bought it for you while I was at it. See if you like it. Her meaning was that this spirit beast ring was not her present for Nangong Yunyi. She only bought it while she was at it. Nangong Yunyi recovered his senses and glanced at young Luo Feng, suddenly understanding something. He wore the ring, and his fingers gently touched the ring. Instantly, a white light beamed from the ring, blinding everyone. Inside the white light, a blurry figure slowly appeared. It was a little sable, its entire body white like snow. Its purple tail stood up as its purple eyes, similar to agate, shifted everywhere, terribly quick-witted. There was a pair of wings growing from the sable's back, its feathers clean and spotlessly white like an angel's. A little sable. Amidst the crowd, someone derisively laughed. This sable is only good for playing cute at most and can't fight at all. It can't be compared to Miss Nangong's blood lion. Nangong Yunyi slowly walked to the front of the sable and dryly said, "To me, nothing can compare to this sable. Because this spirit beast was given to him by young Luo Feng. So, regardless of how strong the blood lion was, its importance could not compare to the sable." The sable disdainfully glanced at the person who insulted it just now. It lifted its little short legs and elegantly and gracefully walked toward the blood lion trapped inside the cage. Roar! Seeing the approaching sable, the blood lion roared in warning, its voice carrying an imperceptible trembling quality that no one could hear. "Miss Nangong, release your blood lion and put the sable in its place." The person continued to sneer, evidently disregarding the adorable sable. The sable hummed and slowly reached the blood lion. It lifted its head and haughtily looked down on the blood lion. The blood lion finally felt fear, and its enormous body hurriedly backed up a few steps. It was intensely shaking, as though the harmless-looking sable was some fierce wild beast. Seeing this, the people, who were once full of ridicule, instantly felt their words stuck in their throats, their face completely stunned. Chapter 1073, Banquet 7. Did they see something wrong? The powerful and strong blood lion was afraid of a little sable. The winged, purple-tailed sable. Nangong Qing's voice grew more emotional. This is the rare spirit beast, the winged, purple-tailed sable. And this sable's strength should be at the god-level spirit beast realm. At this moment, everyone's expression was very vibrant. It was as though their faces were dyed a mixture of cyan and purple. Nangong Yunyi guffawed and placed his hand on young Luo Feng's shoulder. "Young Luo Feng, you're truly generous. I only had asked you to give me a sky-level spirit beast, but you actually gave me such a giant surprise." Compared to young Luo Feng's purple-tailed sable, what did the blood lion amount to? Nangong Lan's eyes flickered, and she walked toward young Luo Feng with a smile. "Miss Yun, no wonder you are eldest brother's best friend. I am convinced about my loss this time. Can Miss Yun tell me where you captured this purple-tailed sable? I would also like to try my luck." "I think you are better off saving your blood lion first," young Luo Feng said with a light chuckle. Nangong Lan's expression abruptly changed. "What do you mean?" "I mean your blood lion is extremely poisoned and won't live long." Ever since the blood lion was brought here, young Luo Feng had noticed its peculiarity. This blood lion was not truly tamed and was poisoned instead. The poison caused it to be devoid of energy and it could only lie in the cage and wait for death. Its roar toward the sable was also lacking in strength, so it was apparent that it was almost beyond saving. Moreover, young Luo Feng paused. This poison makes the blood lion devoid of strength right now, but it won't be long before it becomes strangely ferocious. Whoever approaches it will be bitten to death by it. Nangong Lan's face drained of color, and she tried her best to suppress the anxiety in her head as she shakily said, "What do you mean? Does someone want to harm my Nangong family? But my Nangong family has never antagonized anyone, so why would they borrow my hand to harm someone of my Nangong family?" After Nangong Lan spoke, everyone agreed one after another. That's right, who would have the guts to act against the Nangong family? There are many physicians present, but no one noticed this. What does a little girl like you know? Hearing their words, Nangong Yunyi's expression became more displeased, and he snorted, "Your inability to discover anything means you are unskilled and useless." "We are useless." An elderly man grew intensely furious. "Young Master Nangong, we didn't bother with you because we are in front of Master Nangong. But you would slander us like that? Yes, we are unskilled and can't see anything. However, I have long since heard that Miss Ouya of the Ou family has mastered medicine at a young age, and even many masters who have been renowned for years recognize their inadequacy. Miss Ouya just happens to be here now, so why don't we invite her to take a look? U.P. Dated by rednovelful.com. In a flash, many gazes fell on Ouya. Ouya put down the chopsticks in her hands and slowly stood up. Her movement was graceful, and an air of nobility surrounded her. Out of respect for the Nangong family, I will help to see if this spirit beast is truly poisoned. In front of everyone, Ouya walked to the front of the blood lion's cage and knelt down, carefully observing the blood lion inside the cage. A moment later, she stood up and shook her head. This spirit beast is very healthy and doesn't have any illness. Turmoil took over the crowd, and mocking words shot toward young Luo Feng like knives once again. Chapter 1074, Banquet 8. We already said that there wasn't anything wrong. Now that Miss Ouya says this as well, what else do you have to say? Could it be that the other physicians along with me can't compare to you alone? Young Luo Feng slightly smiled and looked up at Ouya. Have you heard of rabies? Ouya nodded. Rabies is an incurable terminal disease. Any spirit beasts who catch this disease must be killed. And the symptoms of rabies? Young Luo Feng continued to ask. Ouya was silent for a moment. Spirit beasts who catch this disease won't have any symptoms in its early stages but will suddenly go mad in the later stages and be extremely terrified of wind and water. If they are met with these two objects, they will go crazy and attack humans. It's not that the early stages of rabies don't have symptoms, it's that you can't observe them. Young Luo Feng wickedly smiled. Also, if you are met with a spirit beast who caught rabies, and you collect its saliva and mix it with other herbs, it will produce a toxic poison. It's obvious that this blood lion was poisoned by that. Ouya was startled. The early stages of rabies have symptoms. I have never heard of this. Hearing this, the other people all hastily agreed. Miss Ouya isn't the only one, we also have never heard of this. You must be making things up, family head, you must not believe this woman. Young Luo Feng indifferently glanced at the elderly man who spoke. Your lack of knowledge means you are ignorant. The elderly man turned livid with anger. You actually dared to say I'm ignorant. Let me tell you, I already joined the physician tower a few days ago. The various medical texts inside the physician tower don't have records of these symptoms either, so even if you invited the tower master of the physician tower here, she would also think you are sprouting nonsense. The physician tower. Young Luo Feng slightly narrowed her eyes. It looks like entry to the physician tower must be stricter and can't allow some people to enter as they please. The old man sneered. I entered the physician tower based on my own strength. If you are really medically inclined, why can't you even enter the tower? This merely proves that you are nothing but a swindler. Young Luo Feng did not say anything more to the old man and turned to Nangong Yunyi. Go and bring a bowl of clear water here. Nangong Yunyi understood young Luo Feng's following course of action and nodded, hurriedly walking out of the banquet hall. Before he left, he subconsciously glanced at Nangong Lan. If this blood lion was really poisoned, then it meant that Nangong Lan would not let him off even if he was a useless prodigal. A moment later, Nangong Yunyi walked in holding a tub of water. He silently walked to the cage and poured the water onto the blood lion's head. Absolute silence dawned on the entire banquet hall. Everyone stared at the cage without blinking, and no one discovered Nangong Lan's ghastly pale face. Roar. The contact with water appeared to have worsened the condition of the blood lion. He madly banged against the cage. His previously gentle eyes turned abnormally ferocious, his pupils completely blood red. Inside the banquet hall, there was no other noise besides the sound of the blood lion banging against the cage. Everyone maintained their silence in unity, their gaze going from its initial astonishment to turmoil. The blood lion really went mad, and young Luo Feng spoke the truth. How laughable it was that they were ridiculing her just now. Recalling the things they said, they wanted nothing more than to find a hole to burrow themselves into. It would be better than humiliating themselves here. Ouya's expression darkened, and she tightly clenched her fists. Her eyes swept toward young Luo Feng with a frosty glint. Chapter 1075, Banquet 9. She lost to someone the same age as her. This was a humiliation that she had never suffered before in her entire life. One day, she would make young Luo Feng pay with interest. Who was it? Who poisoned my blood lion? Suddenly, a furious bellow was heard from Nangong Lan. She swiftly walked to Nangong Yunyi with 2 tracks of tears flowing from her eyes. Eldest brother, I've let you down. I didn't look after the blood lion well and allowed others to have a chance to exploit it. Don't worry, I will certainly find out who wanted to harm you and seek justice for you. Her tear-stained appearance made everyone unable to link her to the culprit. Nangong Qing's face darkened as he coldly stated, Lenur, not many people can come into contact with your spirit beast. How come you had no clue someone poisoned it? Nangong Lan shook her head. I also don't know what happened. In my view, it's impossible for anyone to have been able to come into contact with the spirit beast. Father, you must investigate the truth and avenge eldest brother. Family head. The elders of the family could not continue watching and spoke up, Miss had good intentions. Who knew she would be used by someone else? Perhaps the one who that person wanted to harm was Miss but didn't know Miss wanted to give the blood lion to someone else. Family head. Miss was also a victim. Don't blame her. Her feelings toward eldest young master are very sincere, so she feels sadder than anyone about this matter. Nangong Qing's face slowly eased. Lenur, leave for now. I hope you can discover the truth soon. Otherwise, don't blame father for not recognizing you as my daughter. Nangong Lan lowered her head, her hands that hung beside her tightly clenching. Yes, father, this daughter will do as you order. After saying this, she looked up. Her sight appeared to accidentally dart past young Luo Feng's face before she turned around to walk out. The moment she turned around, the hatred in her eyes could not be hidden anymore and revealed itself. Viciousness permeated her eyes. Year. Nangong Qing looked at Nangong Yunyi with a faint smile and said with a gentle tone, You've been frightened. Go and rest with your friend first. Father will handle this matter for you. Nangong Yunyi nodded and was about to turn around to leave when Yun Luofeng's voice was suddenly heard beside him. Nangong, this is at least someone's birthday present for you, isn't it a pity if you don't take it? Nangong Yunyi paused his steps and blinked. But it's been poisoned. It won't acknowledge me even if I retain it. Wait a moment for me. Yun Luofeng slowly walked toward the blood lion. A few silver needles appeared in her hand and rapidly entered the spirit beast's body. The originally restless blood lion abruptly calmed and silently stood inside the cage, unmoving. Use plague flower, blood spirit herb, golden ginseng, heaven's will fruit, and a drop of fresh blood from this blood lion to boil a decoction. Feed it to him for 3 continuous days, and he will recover. Those words were directed at Nangong Qing. After saying this, she walked toward Nangong Yunyi with upturned lips. It's late. I should leave. Let me send you off. No need. Yun Luofeng shook her head. Nangong, with these 2 spirit beasts' protection, your safety won't be a concern anymore. After saying this, she gradually disappeared in the night without a second look back.